I just caught my wife cheating on me with a coworker that she said is just a friend, and she doesn't know that I already know. So I'm about to give her a divorce as a surprise. My name is Kamal, and my life took a turn for the worse about 3 months ago. I'm a 34-year-old software engineer living in Istanbul with my wife, Layla, who works in marketing. We've been married for 8 years, and I always thought we had a strong bond. We weren't perfect, but who is, right? One day, Layla started mentioning a new coworker, Arda, quite frequently. At first, it seemed harmless. They worked on the same projects, shared a lot of ideas, and often stayed late at the office. I was happy she had someone to share her work, stress with. But then, things started to change. Layla began to be secretive with her phone. She'd smile at messages and then quickly put her phone away when I walked in. She started dressing up more, putting on makeup just to go to the office. I brushed it off as paranoia, thinking maybe she was just trying to feel good about herself. But then, the late nights became more frequent, and she began coming home with excuses that didn't add up. One night, she came home smelling like a different cologne. I confronted her, asking why she smelled different. She laughed it off, saying it was probably from a hug she got from a colleague, but my gut told me something was off. I decided to investigate. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I felt I had no choice. I installed a tracker on her phone. It felt wrong, invading her privacy like that. But I needed to know the truth. For the first few days, nothing out of the ordinary happened. She went to work, stayed late, and came home. Then, one Friday night, her location pinged at a hotel across town. My heart sank. I watched as her location stayed there for hours. She wasn't at a work meeting. She was at a hotel with Arda. I couldn't believe it. I felt my world crumble around me. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. How long had this been going on? Was it serious? Did she still love me? I needed more proof. I needed to see it with my own eyes. The next day, I hired a private investigator. It wasn't cheap, but I needed concrete evidence before I confronted her. Over the next few weeks, the PI followed her, gathering photos and videos of her and Arda together. They were holding hands, kissing, and even going into his apartment. It was all there, undeniable. Armed with the evidence, I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it in a way that would give me the upper hand. I planned a special dinner at our favorite restaurant, the place where we had our first date. I wanted her to feel comfortable and unsuspecting. We sat down, and I tried to act normal. Inside, I was seething with anger and hurt, but I kept my cool. We ordered our food, and as we waited, I pulled out the photos and placed them on the table in front of her. "What the fuck is this, Layla?" I asked, my voice shaking with rage. She looked down at the photos, her face going pale. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Answer me," I demanded, slamming my fist on the table. "Kamal, I can explain," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Explain what? How you've been fucking Arda behind my back?" I hissed. She broke down, crying uncontrollably. The other patrons in the restaurant stared, but I didn't care. My whole world was falling apart, and I needed answers. "I'm sorry, Kamal. It just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she sobbed. "How long?" I asked coldly. 6 months, she admitted, her voice barely audible. 6 months. 6 fucking months. She had been lying to me, betraying me. I felt a rage like I had never felt before. I stood up, threw some money on the table, and walked out, leaving her there in her misery. I spent the next few days in a daze, trying to figure out what to do next. I couldn't stay in the same house with her. Every time I looked at her, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. I decided to stay with a friend, Mert, for a while. He was supportive, listening to me vent and offering advice, but the decision was ultimately mine. One night, as I lay on Mert's couch, I made up my mind. I couldn't live like this. I deserved better. I decided to file for divorce, but I wanted to do it in a way that would leave no doubt in her mind about how much she had hurt me. I called a lawyer the next day and started the process. I wanted to surprise her with the divorce papers, just like she had surprised me with her affair. I planned everything meticulously. I had the papers served to her at work, in front of all her colleagues, including Arda. The day finally came. I was a nervous wreck, but also filled with a sense of justice. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation and pain that I had felt. I waited at a cafe nearby, knowing that the papers would be served at 2 p.m. At exactly 2:15, my phone rang. It was Layla. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again, leaving messages, crying, begging me to talk to her. I listened to one of the voicemails. She was hysterical, pleading for a chance to explain. But I was done. When I got home that evening, she was waiting for me. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. "Kamal, please, let's talk," she begged. "There's nothing to talk about, Layla. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it," I replied coldly. She tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. I walked past her and started packing my things. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. It was tainted with her betrayal. As I packed, she kept talking, trying to justify her actions, but I didn't listen. I was done. I moved out that night and stayed with Mert until I found my own place. The divorce was finalized a few months later. It was a messy, painful process, but in the end, I was free. Free from her lies and deceit. Looking back, I'm grateful for the experience. It taught me a lot about myself and what I deserve in a relationship. I won't lie, it was the hardest thing I've ever been through, but it made me stronger. Now, I'm ready to move on and start a new chapter in my life. Layla and Arda are still together as far as I know. I don't care anymore. They deserve each other. As for me, I'm focusing on myself and my own happiness. And that, my friends, is the best revenge of all.